Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to this workshop. We have Michael Tsarion that will be giving you a whole focus on the destruction of Atlantis. And my name is Ruben Uriarte. I'm the State Director of Northern California MUFON. I'd like to welcome all of you. Michael will be focusing this workshop, as I mentioned earlier, the destruction of Atlantis. Was Atlantis really a center of advanced human civilization? What if Homo sapiens are not indigenous to Earth? Is the New Order really something new? Why is the bloodline so crucial to the monarchs of the Earth? Who was Merlin? The Mahabharata in India, that's with the Spanish twist, the Trojan and Celtic wars were all going on relatively simultaneously. Who are the fallen angels that are spoken in the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls? Michael will clarify once and for all who they are and how humanity has been affected. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Tsarion.
Thanks again for joining me for the second part of this presentation. And if you give me a minute, we'll connect with where we were in the previous one. No, it's fine. I turned it off. While I'm fishing through the files. Okay. I'd like to come to the synopsis so we can get to the matter of how much influence there has been in our society from these visitations and the coming of the gods. Like I said before, that more than 30,000 written documents from all over the world tell of advanced beings who either came to Earth or were already living on the Earth. This is from a good book called Past Shock by Jack Barringer. Now, the word Nephilim that's used in the Bible to describe these beings really means those who were cast down, not those who came down, okay? And sometimes they mistranslate that. It's those who were cast down. The difference of influence. In a book called the Srimad Bhagavatam of India, there's a quote that says, "It tells of a demon race which invaded the three planetary systems. Opposing the demons was the Hindu god Shiva, who possessed a powerful weapon that he fired at the enemy airships from his own." Now, it's interesting that the Mahabharata, the Veda, and the Bible, many of the references that, of course, spoke about this were just taken out. The Mahabharata, when Western scholars, even recently, like the 19th century, when they had to go through that book, or the Bhagavad Gita, and translate it into English, do you know that any time they came across a passage like this, they just left it out? They didn't even bother translating it because, of course, they knew what it would mean, it would represent. Then we turn to the Bible again. We have a statement that says, "They come from the far country, from the end of heaven, to destroy the whole land. Who are these that fly in a cloud as the doves to their windows?" Now, that's right. Who are these personages? I'd like to go into that right now with you and explain something of the background of our history that has been kept from us. It turns out that about 50,000 years ago, the Sumerian records always talk about 400,000 years ago. If you listen to Zachariah Sitchin when he's talking about the Anunnaki, and he's translated the ancient monuments there and the scripts and the cylinder seals, he tends to put the emphasis on 400,000 years ago, and I tend to have some problems with that, because it's not really corroborated by many of the other peoples and tribes and their writings. The Celtic peoples, the tendency is to believe it's about 50,000 years ago that our planet was actually visited by aliens. And the stories of the legends, when you research them enough and find out what was going on, you actually discover that a race of beings who had been expurged from their own planetary system somewhere else. Some people say Sirius, you know. Others are talking about the Pleiades. There's different philosophies. They had been expunged from their own system in an Armageddon that they had been having on their planet. And they left, and they were being pursued. And they were extremely advanced people. They're where our technology is, maybe even 1,000 years and more in advance. And these beings had space travel, and the stories talk about how they left their own planetary system and they were being pursued, this adversarial power, you see. And it somehow says that they strayed into our solar system while they were being pursued, and they were ahead of their pursuers. And what they did was that they landed, or at least pretended to land, on another planet that used to be in our solar system. And we'll come to that. Now, we have information. Yeah. All down through society, as many other scholars and websites have gone into. Excuse me. About strange vehicles and visitations. Like in the book of Ezekiel, there's that famous quote that you've heard a lot. Now, as I looked upon the living creatures, I saw 4 wings upon the ground, one by each of them, of the living creatures, with their 4 faces, the appearance of wheels, and their composition was like the color of shiny amber. And all 4 wings had but one likeness, and their composition was like a wheel in the middle of a wheel. This is in the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, about a vision that this prophet is meant to have had. And we have artifacts from all over the world that bear incredible resemblance to modern-day spaceships. And I'm showing you this for a reason, because some of you have seen this stuff before on other websites, but I've got a particular interest to explain why there is the similarity. And spacemen and astronauts. Because on a lot of the programs that deal with this, they do tell you they show you these things, but they never go into why. Have you ever noticed that after an hour-long, multi-million-dollar program, they still leave you with more questions? So we've got to realize that just displaying the facts and looking at the anomalies is one half of it, but then we need somebody to come along and give the answers, and that they will not do right now on mainstream media. Here we have again some sort of celestial scene, and with some what looks like crafts flying, you see. And then, of course, the temple at Abydos in Egypt. You have carvings on the walls that look like submarines and helicopters, very similar to what we have today. And many throughout the world, Vimana is a term that the Indians have used. Shem is a term that the Israelites have used. We have different visitation witnesses. Now, as these beings were entering into our solar system, they did land on a great planet that was in our solar system. It was called Tiamat by the ancients. Some people have also called that Lucifer, and others Luna, not connected to our moon. This was a gigantic planet that was mostly oceans, by the way, and it was its atmosphere was so luminescent that people called it the second sun. That's how it got the name Lucifer. In fact, another term that they often used was Phaeton, right? The Greeks called that planet Phaeton. And it wasn't a sun, but it was a planet that at certain, whatever atmosphere it had, whenever the sunlight was, beaming on it, it has great radiance. And all down through society you'll hear in the ancient legends the terminology that relates to the second sun or the second orb in our solar system. And these beings that entered into our solar system made it appear, or that they had landed on this planet. They even set up a dummy base to send pulsations, electromagnetic pulsations out. And when their pursuers arrived into our solar system, they detected this and basically thought that their adversary was on this planet of Tiamat, and guess what they did to it? They completely incinerated the entire planet of this Tiamat. And in many works, there's references to this. They say this planet split in half. One part just plunged into the sun, another part became our moon. Some people even say part of Tiamat became the Earth, but that's not really true. So this entire planet was destroyed, and all of its content is up there now as what we call the asteroid belt, exactly. And Charles Fort, who's an American suppressed writer, not too well known by people, made a life study of all these things that have to do with anomalies like fallen ice, these huge chunks of ice, and frozen fish, and all sorts of strange things that fall from the sky. It's never been properly explained, and they thought he was a crank. The point is that they're not coming from our planet. Sometimes when our orbit of our planet, has times when it comes very close to the asteroid belt and the debris that's up there from this lost planet. And when it does, the magnetic attraction of the Roche field brings some of this content through into our atmosphere again. And that's why even live fish can fall. Because I'm talking about this destruction of this planet probably happened about 50,000 years ago. And it was an ocean planet. Tiamat was an ocean planet, so most of that is ice, as most of the asteroid belt is ice. Those are frozen oceans. And even its contents will fall to our Earth live, thousands of years later, because of the nature of the refrigeration. And then it's reactivated by our Earth atmosphere. And every time this stuff happens, and people all over the world have seen this happen in front of them, and it's never been properly explained. So, these beings actually did not go to Tiamat. They actually landed on our planet, which was mostly covered in forests at that time. And it was 5 different continents, not what we know today. And they went into the tunnels that people like Eric von Däniken, have discovered and amazed at how these tunnels could be cut. And some say that they even went under the oceans. Like in Samuel here it says, "And the king said to her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth." In Bulwer Lytton, his book The Coming Race, he says he describes the existence of a utopian society of advanced beings who live in tunnels and caverns beneath the surface of the earth in a land called the Vrilya. These beings, known as the Ana, were forced into the inner earth because of earth changes, specifically a flood which destroyed their civilizations. Okay? So again, information about Hollow Earth. And by the way, Hollow Earth is a fascinating subject if ever there was one. This is Admiral Byrd, you may have heard of, who flew across the North Pole and discovered that there was these caverns that, again, are not on any physical maps. For those who don't know about this, they should check into the concept of Hollow Earth. In the book of Job, it says, "Dead things are formed from under the water, and the inhabitants thereof." And then when you look to the comment about this, it says, "The place where the Rephaim stay, which is beneath the waters." Dead things in Hebrew is Rephaim, the offspring of the fallen angels, akin to the Nephilim. But again, just for now, let's notice that they're talking about living under the waters. The Celtic legends speak of exactly the same thing. How that when the gods, the negative beings, come to attack the gods, they come from under the ocean. That's another thing that people just throw across the room and go, "What is this nonsense?" When they read it in a legend. They don't take it seriously. Now these beings came to our planet, and after they knew that their pursuers had basically gone, they emerged out onto the surface of the earth and set up their headquarters on the continent of Appalachia, and the headquarters was called Atlantis. Atlantis is not a continent. This is another piece of disinformation that's been brought out. There was 5 gigantic continents in those days: Tyrrhenia, Beringia, Oceania, Fennoscandia, and Appalachia. And Appalachia was in the north. It's where, North America, Alaska is, or where the Arctic is now, right across past Greenland, Iceland, into where up of England, and then into Sweden, and into Siberia. That whole area, but specifically the part between, say, Greenland and England, this is where Atlantis was, on a gigantic continent. You could walk the whole way. And the headquarters of these alien beings is what we've come to call Atlantis. And when they set up this advanced, they had all their technology with them, spacecrafts and all sorts of super technologies. Remember Superman, the movie? How when they watch Superman, when he goes up to his oracle or his tabernacle, his temple, don't they show him going north, up into the Arctic, into the snows, and then he goes into his precinct and it's all like a crystalline computer? Do you remember that? Superman from another planet? Yeah, somebody's trying to tell us things there. Anyway, these beings started to interact with us. Now, our planet, in the 65 million years or whatever we've been on this planet, Homo sapien has been on this planet as hunter-gatherers, we probably have been visited enormous amount of times by cousins and brothers from other solar systems. But the policy of most of those groups has always been to come here, do your research, but not to interfere in the actual destiny of the indigenous peoples, the Homo sapiens, and the Neanderthals, and the Angus people that were on this planet. Not to involve yourself, and if possible, not even to be seen.